Oppai Hunter.
Our story begins in a magical world. Two skilled adventurers, Zell, an elf, and Stunk, a human, while out on a quest stumble upon an angel named Krim, who broke their halo when they fell from heaven and cannot return. The two adventurers take the angel to a tavern where they can safely wait for their halo to reform, and you know what? After all the controversy, you probably know what this series is. In this series, our three main characters, along with an extra friend they bring along for each episode, traverse the land to the many sucky girl brothels to find out which monster girl is the best to have sex with. And once experiencing these establishments, they write reviews for the entire land to see. Whether you're a longtime fan of series like Monster Musume or this is your first rodeo with monster girls, this series has plenty to make you wonder if human girls are all they're cracked up to be. Join us as we give our thoughts on what I believe is the most borderline ecchi we've ever gotten, Interspecies Reviewers.
Story.
So the story for this is very simple. I basically went over everything you need to know in the synopsis. The story doesn't really go from point A to point B. It's just, we're gonna go across the land, find out which monster girl has the best pussy, and move on to the next one. And it's best when ecchi doesn't try to be more than what it needs to be. Like, this knows that the main purpose of this is just to draw some titties and call it a day. And I feel like that works very well with it. I typically like High School DxD, for example, follows a storyline as well as has the ecchi elements. I like a little bit of a mix for that, but for the most part, Interspecies Reviewers wasn't that much of an issue for me. I feel like it knew what it wanted to be and it did what it wanted to do.
Fan service.
This show offers a wide variety of fetishes and girls for your viewing pleasure, that's for sure. From one-eyed girls to big, massive booby girls to
Hyena cock.
to hard, massive hyena cock to girls you can't touch to girls with no pussy and are just bones. This show has it all. They pretty much cover anything you could possibly into. There's things in there that I didn't even know that existed. We'll get there. Some of that stuff I don't ever want to see again. But some of this other stuff, ooh, it was kind of hot, not gonna lie. All I gotta say is it really questions, is it porn with plot or plot with porn?
So, as I said before, this series knows what it wants to be. It's an ecchi, its only point is to have sexual content in it. And the animation and like the quality of the fan service in the series is really good for what it is. Because take it Senran Kagura Shinobi Masters, for example. The characters are animated super stiff and lazily, and then there's series like Testament to a New Sister Devil, where the nipples aren't drawn exactly how I would like, but this series does pretty good. The girls are all attractive. I do have a slight complaint that 90% of them are like D+, but in general, the girls look good. The fan service is what it needs to be.
As a woman with real female anatomy, you do a good job drawing some boobies.
So to kind of mix story and fan service together, I did feel like later in the series there was a little bit too much of like, we are doing nothing but going to these brothels, and there is nothing really else to get from it, because they mix in comedy and just little glimpses of actual story every once in a while. But I felt in like the latter half of the series, it was just like, this is the brothel, this is our score, this is the brothel, this is our score, hey, there's this little tiny event, and then just rinse and repeat. And that kind of made the series get a little stale for me.
I agree. I think it got kind of repetitive with some of its stuff. Like, if they weren't going to a brothel, they were hitting on Bird Girl over here, and then the gag was he'd violently assault them. And that's it.
Yeah, so I think it was about episode 5 or 6 where it was starting to get a little boring because it was just same thing over and over and over again. Which is why I like episode 11, which just had a different feel to it because the first half was with the incubus who was like, your reviews are wrong, I did this, and it was just like weird and nonsensical. And the second half of the episode was kind of like that too. It was a little bit more traditional, but it still had kind of the twist of we were pissed drunk, so these reviews that we wrote are garbage. And that was a definite good change of pace based on the repetitive nature of the other episodes. And also, if you were looking for fan service and you were led in by episode 3's extremes, you will be disappointed by the following 9 episodes because it never really even gets close to what happened in episode 3 in terms of how extreme the fan service is.
Yeah, episode 3 is the peak of pushing ecchi boundaries. Then past that, it just goes downhill. It becomes pretty tame for compared to episode 3.
キャラクターズ
So, I don't really like any of them. That's just me. I don't really... They could have been interesting if they went more in the story, but honestly, they're just basic pervs who just want to get off. And yeah, I really don't have much of an opinion on them. I focus mainly on the Monster Girls this whole series. I didn't really care for them. Krim was probably the most interesting. I think I wanted to learn more about their heaven thing, and hopefully I wanted them to get back to heaven, but that didn't work. So yeah, I don't really have much of a positive mindset about them.
Do you feel like the Monster Girls was serviceable, or would you want more out of the girls in the series?
I mean, they're there to do their job. I don't expect much from them. It's not like it's a harem or anything, or a romance. They're there to just get laid and get money. I don't expect much from them.
I generally agree with all that. I did actually like the main cast for what they were. Obviously, they weren't that deep, but their personalities were alright. They had an interesting dynamic, although Krim kind of lost some of his character later on when he was starting to be into going to the brothels. And I felt like his reluctance to do so was a decent dynamic. It is kind of weird not having a character to latch onto, because typically with ecchi especially, there, or really every anime at this point, there is a waifu that I take away from a series, but this doesn't really have that.
I feel like, I mean, I agree with what both of you said, that the characters could have been deeper, but I think the reason why they weren't really deep characters was to more focus on the differences of girls. Like, oh, this is what we're featuring this week, and we don't want to take away what's special about the girl, so we're just going to give you this kind of plain guy. I think maybe if, like, each of them had, like, this very specific fetish that they were all into, that would have made them more interesting. Like, I don't know, the purple-haired one.
The halfling?
Yeah, the halfling, there we go. The halfling was heavily into BDSM. I think if each of them had that sort of fetish where they went to the girls and, like, you see that playing out, it would have been so much cooler. But they both Zell and Stunk, the only difference was the different type of girls that they liked within the different species. But I don't know, I loved Krim. I thought they were best character. I liked the whole innocence in the beginning, and then slowly they're like, okay, this isn't that bad. Surprisingly, from my perspective, the show focuses more on Krim when they go to the brothels. Like, they make sure to show a lot of what Krim is doing.
True.
And I'm not complaining about that, because I liked Krim a lot.
エンターテインメントバリュー
I would say it was entertaining for the most part, seeing like how far and how extreme and like in a sense of what girl is gonna appear in this episode, like what type of girl. But towards the like episodes like 7, 6, like 8, those kind of got boring because like you've mentioned, it got formulaic and showing the girls were very brief, and it felt like it lost the spark and steam that it had in the beginning. I would say for the most part I was entertained, but there were definite parts that I was bored.
And yeah, I agree with that. I mentioned it a little bit before. It was interesting, and I think you mentioned this as well, that just seeing the different quirks to each of the monster girls was interesting, where, like, for example, comparing it to the obvious contender Monster Musume, they sort of do that, but it kind of becomes a background detail, like, after the first time they bring it up, whereas there's kind of complexities to each different monster girl and like how the experience with them is. Like, for example, the salamander, like Krim was able to spend time with her because Krim has heat resistance, and also the fact that that brothel is not just the sex, it's you can grill meat on her, and that kind of stuff was interesting to me. And I had a decent amount of laughs. It wasn't the funniest series in the world, but there were some jokes I was like, that was cool.
I definitely found having different types of monster girls entertaining, because a lot of like monster girl animes have like the same basic girls. Like you have your succubus, you have like a harpy, you have a horse girl. It's all basic ones, but this one kind of went a lot in depth of monsters I've never seen before. Like you had light spirits, you had like the make-a-bitch character thing. That was great. You had a fairy, you had dream eaters. Like all of those I would have never thought of, and they were entertaining to see what they did. So I found that entertaining, finding new girls I've never seen before.
ベストガール
I would say my favorite species in the show would be the elves. They looked the most human, and that's what I'm into. The only thing is they had pointed ears. And the ones that the show showed were pretty hot, I gotta say. And according to all of us, I think we were all into them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say elves. I would definitely bone the elves. My least favorite was, oh my god, it's really a toss-up between the skeleton girl and the cyclopses. But if I had to absolutely say the worst one, it would be skeletons. I don't see any appeal in boning the skeleton. She has no parts to do anything, and it'd just be creepy as shit to be fingering a skeleton. And she's just chattering her teeth. That would just turn me off completely. And my favorite establishment was Demia's. That was great. It's a girlfriend experience, and Demia's clones are all hot. A little bit too big of titties, but the experience itself, 10 out of 10. I agree with the Interspecies Reviewer crew on that one. And then, I guess for least favorite establishment would be the Lilum Horde. because you could die, and I'm not trying to die, especially with these ugly little things trying to bone you. So that's my best and worst of the show.
So, my favorite species, besides the elves, because I think that's just common around the board, I love demons. I love how they look. I've always liked demons. And I like how they, like, expanded on their mindset in the anime. How, like, you need to word their contracts or it could fuck you over. I find that interesting. My least favorite, skeletons. Yeah. You can't do anything. They're not hot looking. They don't do anything to you, really. Yeah, I don't like them. My favorite establishment, now thinking, would be Demia, whatever her name is.
Dimia.
Yeah, Demia. And honestly, kind of the role-playing one, I kind of like how they switch it up every week, and like they have like a whole council, I guess, of just deciding of what they're gonna do. I think that's kind of cool. My least favorite, honestly, the light spirits. I don't like how you can't see anything, and how you do it out in the open in front of everyone. I don't see the whole likeness, I guess, to it. I don't see why anyone would really dig that, but it's not my thing whatsoever.
I agree to both of you in very many aspects. Like, my top ones are like elves, bird maids, and like Demia. It's just like, it's not very interesting, but like, of course, the more human-like ones are the ones I'm drawn to the most. But I do like demon girls. I like succubus, although the counter effect of the actual succubus place, I don't know about that, being just completely devoid of energy for a week. But I would say that, and all three of us said it, the magical kingdom with Demia is the best establishment. If I were to pick a different one, it would be Build-A-Bitch. Those two are just like, they're the perfect ones, honestly. Least favorite establishment, if not Lilim Horde, it would be the undead one, with like the zombies and the vampires and the ghost. If I were to pick something different for the worst one besides skeleton, it would be the ghost, because the ghost is hot, but she can't touch you, you can't touch her, so there's like no point. And just to add another establishment, honestly, the gender swap inn would be another one of my picks.
I agree.
I would have loved it more, but I'm a girl. I don't want to be a guy. I just wanted to be with the girls. But I do like the concept of the gender swap in.
ボーナス
We kink shaming, boys.
Yeah, we kink shaming, boys. So when it comes to fetishes or specific quirks of the girls, my best one would be the dreams. I think that's such a cool concept of the Dream Eater, is that you can basically fuck any girl you want as long as you've fucked her before. And I thought that was a really cool concept. Like, she doesn't have to actually be there. You can just poof, she's there. But if that's not fetishy enough, definitely the role playing. That's really hot, like Monk mentioned. Because they changed their role plays. They're not good actors, but no, I don't care. And the absolute worst fetish of all time is eyeball licking. I never want to see that shit ever again. Do not make eyeball licking a thing, anime. I don't want to see it. Don't any of y'all ever try eyeball licking. I don't want it. I don't want it. Jason, do not display eyeball licking on the screen right now. Don't you dare. It is disgusting.
What else? What am I supposed to show if not that?
No, just don't. Censor it.
Yeah,
Censor it.
I'll
That's
pixelate it.
I cringed, that's for sure, and I almost puked at it. So, caution when you get there. It's fucking disgusting. End of my rant. Go ahead.
So, my best, besides role-playing, since I've already stated that, would be magical lotion. I find that really interesting, how it could do a bunch to you and all that shit. But, like, once you're done, you don't have to worry about it, like, staying on you or anything. It's just gone. And that's really cool. My worst, egg laying. I find it so gross. I don't care who it's done by, it's gross. End of discussion. It's gross. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree for my worst being egg laying. I'm looking at my list, and like some of them are like gross, but I don't know. Like I'm not as opposed to that as the egg laying, especially the place they went for it with all the like the penguin girl, the crocodile, the lizard. Like no, thank you. Like bird maid, sure, whatever, but all the other species that lay eggs, no thank you. But my best is honestly kind of hard because slime girls are good, gender swap is good, and then I don't know if it completely counts because it's more of the establishment than the fetish is the mushroom girls of like the owner basically looks at you and is like, this is what you like. And then they have some extras to the mushroom girls, but it's not specific to that species. So I guess I would say slime girls is my favorite.
ファイナルスコア
I guess I'll go first because it's fresh on my mind. So, I quite like the series. I've watched a lot of ecchis, and I would say this is up there on my list. I think it was interesting, and there are some cool characters and an interesting dynamic. I'm used to ecchi with like an actual story, like plot and shit, but this just kind of followed one type of thing and they just stuck with it. Like there's no real background like mentioned. Like there are little snippets and stuff, but not much, which kind of lowered my score. And my score is 7. It's good. I like it. I just wish there was more story. It would have been more up there if there was.
I definitely recommend this anime to ecchi watchers. It's something quite different than a typical ecchi. It did get repetitive at times, which lowered my score for me, but I definitely enjoyed watching it for the most part, so I give it a 7 out of 10.
I as well watch a lot of ecchi. I've done so for the past 5 years, and I as well also prefer story in the ecchi, at least a little bit, but like I've said earlier in the review, this knows what it wants to be and doesn't really try to overstretch outside of that. There is a lot of repetitive nature while going through this series. There are times where we were watching and it was like, do we gotta watch the next episode right now? But it's still a decent show. If you're a fan of ecchi, I'd say it's worth the watch. But I also give it a 7, so the official Oppai Hunters score is a unanimous 7 out of 10. That wraps up our review on Interspecies Reviewers. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Interspecies Reviewers, let us know what you think about it in the comments. Or let us know if our review has influenced you whether or not to watch this series. And of course, if you like this review, leave us a like and subscribe for more Oppai Hunters content. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.